Welcome back, Sebastian here. So Monaco Grand Prix just finished, so let's get right into it. So Verstappen started on pole with Alonso second alongside. Before the race, Pirelli were saying that they thought that all the leaders were going to start on the softs and that some might start on the mediums. However, that wasn't the case. Verstappen was starting on the medium and Alonso on the hard, and it was a pretty even mix between medium runners and hard runners to start. In fact, Zhou was the only driver on the grid who started on the soft tires. So it was an even start into turn one, so no one really got an advantage. And then down lower in the midfield, Stroll was looked like he was tapped by Hulkenberg at Mirabeau, and then he basically tried to go for a gap, it looked like with Albon at the hairpin, which wasn't really there. So it was a bit of a clumsy move there by Stroll, and he said that he got damage and a puncture on the radio, but it turns out there was no puncture. Hulkenberg, Zhou, and Perez all come into the pits with damage on that opening lap. Verstappen, Ocon, Ham, Tsunoda, and Norris with ones on the mediums to start, just as something important to note. Lap 3, Russell was noted for starting box infringement. Lap 5, Hulkenberg was given a 5-second penalty for the collision with Sargent, where he kind of just shoved him out of the way at Mirabeau. Lap 7, they said that there was no further investigation necessary for Russell, so no penalty for him. Lap 9, there was a train going from Piastri, De Vries, Albon, and Bottas downwards. So we're only like 7-8 laps into the race, and we're already having tons of trains forming. So lap 10, there was a 12-second gap between Alonso and Ocon, so the top two were really pulling away from Ocon in third. And then Sainz, right when we're on board with him, basically he breaks his front wing going into the back of Ocon, going for a move down at the Nouvelle chicane. And it looked like a really clumsy move. He basically just tried to go half-heartedly go for a move, didn't really commit to either the inside or the outside fully, and then just kind of steamed a bit into the back of Ocon, breaking the end plate of his front wing. And the commentators were saying that he may get a meatball flag for that, but then it breaks off at turn 2 of the following lap, which was a bit dangerous. Then Sainz, when it comes on the radio, saying that he was moving under braking, which didn't really look like it was the case. Lap 16, more trains forming, long train behind Sargent. Lap 17, black and white flag for Sainz for causing a collision. So not a meatball flag, but a black and white flag. So basically telling him, if you do anything like that again, you'll get a penalty. Lap 18, Magnussen overtook Sargent at Mirabeau for 15th, so good move there, actually an on-track overtake. And then Stroll and Perez both overtake him at Rascasse for 16th and 17th. So Sargent was really struggling with his tires, especially the rear tires, and it was actually allowing a big enough pace differential that other cars can overtake him. Bottas then overtook Albon for P13. That was at the hairpin, I believe. Albon pits, and the Williams were really struggling with tire wear, especially on the rear tires at this point. Lap 20, Hulkenberg gets past Zhou because Zhou basically took the Regunathan line into turn 1 and then had to give the position back because Hulkenberg was right behind him. Hulkenberg then overtook Sargent for P17 at the Nouvelle chicane, so another nice overtake there on track. Lap 21, Sainz has a wing dangling according to Ocon. Basically, they're just trying to get the race control to give Sainz the meatball flag to force him to pit, which didn't happen. And then we get this really confusing sequence between Sainz and Ferrari, where basically it looked like Ferrari were trying to goad Alpine into making Ocon stop, and basically he's told to box and then told not to. Lap 24, Stroll was very close to Magnussen, a bit erratic for Magnussen there, I thought, but not too much. Lap 26, Sargent pits for a second time, so he basically went from mediums to hards to softs at this point. Maybe a puncture, wasn't sure. The clouds hovering over, but of course nothing yet. The track was still bone dry. Rain in 45 minutes according to Ferrari at this point, so it looked like the rain, we were having a chance of maybe having some rain towards the latter half of the race. Lap 28, Sainz being told to stay out again after being told to box, so Ferrari are trying to play tricks in the pit lane again. Let's see, then cars, I was noted that cars don't want to pit because of the risk of rain. So if there's rain, right, it means that cars can basically, if they can wait it out as long as possible, they can just switch to an intra tire or a wet tire instead of doing a second stop in the middle for another dry tire. Let's see, so lap 32, Hamilton pits for hards, and he comes out in 8th. And then Perez overtakes Stroll for P15 while Stroll had blue flags to let Verstappen pass. Or what? No, yeah, that was this. No, actually, this was when Perez basically tried to overtake Stroll. Yeah, he tried to do it when Verstappen was blue flagged Stroll, but then basically cut the Nouvelle chicane, just went ahead, and he didn't give the points back. Lap 33, Ocon has a slow stop, 4.2 seconds, comes out 7th. Lap 34, Sainz pits, comes out 7th between Ocon and Hamilton, and at this point, and then Perez goes. At this point, Perez goes right into the back of Magnussen, and he basically just really sloppy move from Magnussen, breaks his front wing, and he has to come into pit a second time to change his front wing. And his race is basically over at this point, I wrote. And he goes back on the mediums. Lap 36, Sainz was livid and he was having basically a rant on the radio because Sainz really wanted to target a strategy to try to target Ocon, given that they started on the hards and they could maybe target Ocon. However, for some reason, Ferrari was set on covering Hamilton, who started on medium, so a bit of an odd strategy there for Ferrari. And then risk of rain with 20 laps to go because there was quite a bit of communication. I think that was according to Williams at that point. Lap 38, contact between Stroll and Magnussen. Stroll kind of half-heartedly went for a gap at Rascasse, was never there, and he gets black and white flag for that. Lap 42, De Vries was very slow according to Bottas, so more trains forming. Lap 45, Leclerc pits for mediums, comes out 8th. Lap 46, rain in 15 laps according to Aston Martin, and no rain according to the Red Bull weather. So lots of really different opinions depending on each team's forecasting. Lap 50, Gasly pits for mediums, comes out 8th, and then drops down to around, let's see, drops of rain. Oh yeah, drops of rain at turns 6 and 8. So that was according to Russell. So rains were low, starting to fall, and then 51, rain was spitting at turn 3 according to Russell. And then this is kind of where the chaos kind of unfolds. So I think it was really interesting that we have the group kind of from Ocon all the way down to Russell in 8th, that they have already pitted. And I think if the rain had come a little bit sooner in the middle of this pit sequence, it would have led to a really different result. But the rain holds off, so it doesn't really impact that group there. So lap 52, Norris pitched for dry tires, I think. Goes from 10th to 11th because there's a massive gap back to De Vries in 12th. Russell says it's raining more and more. Sainz is chasing Ocon and he cuts the Nouvelle chicane. I don't think anything came of that. Russell pits, Stroll pits too. Stroll was one of the first drivers to pitch for intermediates. Verstappen has a moment at Mirabeau, and then starts to rain really heavy towards in that sector 2, kind of going from Mirabeau down to Portier. Stroll and Bottas and both on inters at this point, and everyone's kind of crawling around sector 2. It's extremely slow. It's like much slower than Formula 3 speeds, basically. Zhou and Albon both pit for inters. Lap 55, Stroll and Bottas were not really going fast enough for the inters to work because basically it was raining very hard in that one section at this point, but the rest of the track was quite dry. And then Alonso from second place decides to pit for mediums, and it looked like a bad call right away, although it was basically a 50-50, I thought. And Alonso himself was even questioning the call at this point. And then Ocon pits, Hamilton pits, and they both pit for inners right away. Verstappen hits the barrier. Portier basically just slides down the hill, gently taps the barrier, no harm done though. Sainz goes down the escape road and basically just oversteered and spun at Mirabeau. I don't think he lost any places though. I think he was fortunate that the way he spun, he didn't have to reverse out of it. Ferrari basically were forced to do a double stack. Although, he lost positions to his teammate. Yeah, so that he ended up behind both Leclerc. He lost positions to the Mercedes as well as Leclerc and Gasly. So a bit of a tough move there for Sainz. Stroll was out. It looked like he basically hit the wall several times. So a bit clumsy there and unfortunate for Stroll. Is probably retired with suspension damage. Lap 57, Magnussen at this point was trying to stay on hards because the team apparently wanted him to try to go until they could switch to wets, which was an interesting call to say the least. Lap 58, Perez and Russell were both noted for an unsafe rejoin, and basically Russell had kind of had a moment at Mirabeau too, when it didn't rejoin the track safely and kind of collided with Perez, but no harm done to either cars, but it was under investigation. So Magnussen hits the barrier, has to replace his front wing at Rascasse right before the pit entry, and then Sargent also taps the barrier at Rask at the hairpin. So at this point, it's like absolute chaos. Drivers are hitting the barrier everywhere. There's yellow flags, no retirement, no safety cars, no virtual safety cars, so which was basically a miracle at this point. Let's see, yeah, so Magnussen, went down the escape road at turn 1 right away on his new wet tires. And then basically Russell was given a 5-second penalty for that contact with Perez. Lap 62, Ferrari expected the rain to end in 2 to 3 minutes, and maybe they were thinking go back to dry tires at some point. At this point, Verstappen's lead was 19 seconds, so because Alonso had to pit twice, it basically caused this massive gap to form between Verstappen and Alonso. Lap 64, Hülkenberg gets a 10-second penalty for not serving his 5-second penalty correctly that he got on the opening lap for his contact with Sargent. Lap 67, Norris trying to catch Tsunoda. Norris overtakes Tsunoda for P9. Tsunoda had been complaining about brake troubles, and he was having a really hard time braking properly, so he was basically a sitting duck in any of the braking zones. At this point, lap 68, Gasly was given a black and white flag. I believe that was for track limits. So here we go, lap 69, Piastri overtakes Tsunoda for P10, so really tough break again for Tsunoda, having a really, really strong race, and then brake problems on a wet Monaco track basically end his day. Tsunoda then goes down the escape road at Mirabel, and he drops all the way down to, I think, 13th eventually. Lap 73, 2 laps down for Perez from Verstappen. So Perez was basically lapped twice by his teammate, which is, I can't remember the last time a teammate was lapped twice so that's something to check. And basically he pits right after that, he pits for Inter's final lap, and not much really happened. Verstappen takes the checker flag and takes his 39th win for Red Bull, which is a new team record, surpassing Sebastian Vettel's 38. So let's go down the order. Verstappen first, Alonso second, Ocon, amazing race from him, amazing weekend overall for him, third. Fourth, Hamilton, fifth, Russell, sixth, Leclerc, seventh, Gasly, eighth, Sainz, ninth, Norris, 10th, Piastri, 11th, Bottas, 12th, De Vries, 13th, Zhou, 14th, Albon, 15th, Tsunoda, 16th, Hülkenberg, 17th, Perez, 18th, Sargent, and your 2 retirements are Magnussen and Stroll. Your Drivers' Championship after Monaco are Verstappen extends his lead with Perez having a pointless weekend, 144 points on top of the table. Second, Perez, 105. Alonso with 93 in third. Hamilton in fourth with 68. Russell fifth with 50. Sainz, and he moves up to fifth with that result. Sainz drops down sixth with 48 points. Leclerc is seventh with 42 points. Stroll still in eighth with 27 points. But Ocon moving up to ninth with 21 points on the season. In 10th is Gasly with 14 points. 11th is Norris with 12 points. 12th is Hülkenberg with 6 points. Piastri with 5 points in 13th. 14th, Bottas with 4 points. 15th, Zhou with 2 points. 16th and 17th, both with 2 points, are Tsunoda and Magnussen. 18th, last driver with a point is Albon. And then 19th, 20th, Sargent and De Vries with 0. Your Constructors' Championship, Red Bull, I guess, they extend their lead over Aston Martin, so 249 points for Red Bull. Aston Martin second, 120. Mercedes are right behind them, 119 points. So really, very close there between basically Alonso and Mercedes. Fourth are Ferrari with 90 points. 55th is Alpine with 35. 6th, McLaren with 17. And then a bit of a drop to Haas with 8 points in 7th. Alfa Romeo with 6 points in 8th. 9th is AlphaTauri with 2 points. And Williams are 10th with a solitary point. So honestly, I really enjoyed that race. For Monaco, I always try to keep my expectations really low for the on-track action, but honestly, that was really exciting. The strategy, I was really glad that we didn't have any kind of safety car in at any point, because that would have probably just ruined the suspense with the strategy. And obviously, the rain and the skill that you get to see from the drivers in the rain was really, really exciting to see as well. So I think overall, for a Monaco Grand Prix, that was pretty much close to the best that you can hope for. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow with my power rankings. I'll talk more in depth about how I felt each driver did this weekend. So thank you so much for watching. That's all for the Monaco Grand Prix review. And I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.